Welcome to the Emma Kinsey Show. And on this episode, I speak to Jeffrey, who has a really unique story about his own non toxic lifestyle. He decided to ditch alcohol in his 50s and has been alcohol free for over 10 years now. Grab a hot drink, sit back, and enjoy this episode. Jeffrey, tell me about your relationship with alcohol now. How would you describe that?
Now, I would say it's somewhat of a peaceful coexistence. I will buy alcohol for my wife and daughter. A lot of the times when we go out to dinner, I will be the only one not drinking
Okay.
alcohol, and I've become perfectly comfortable with that. I drink my Coke with a lime or my tonic water with a lime, and I'm perfectly happy. I don't miss it or long for it in a way that 10 years ago would have been a difference.
How long has alcohol been out of your life?
It'll be 10 years this March.
That's incredible. And how do you describe yourself? Do you describe yourself as alcohol free, as sober? What's the language you put around that?
I was thinking about that earlier today. And one of the things about it to me, I call it non toxic. I don't like to put it in a negative, like I don't drink. I don't
Uh-huh.
think of it that way. I like the expression alcohol free. I do like that, but I don't like the emphasis to be on alcohol. To me, I'm living a way that's very constructive now, whereas alcohol was part of a very destructive way of living. So
Uh-huh.
it was part and parcel of a lot of habits that did not lend itself to a healthy lifestyle or productive lifestyle in many ways. But there are certainly a lot of platitudes. Sobriety, being sober, that's fine, but I don't necessarily link to that.
Okay. And when you say like non-toxic living, does that include other substances or you mainly refer that to alcohol?
For me, it's mainly alcohol. Certainly in my past, a long time ago, there was some drug usage, but nothing of consequence. But non toxic to me is just a lifestyle that you're trying to not have anything that's poisonous to your mind or to your system that you're doing. Alcohol for me was definitely the primary issue, very
Yeah.
definitely.
And how, yeah, perfect. And how were your drinking habits before, like those 10 years back? Were you drinking every day, just once a week, or like how was alcohol showing up in your life?
I would say I had gone through my adulthood through stops and starts with trying to stop, being unsuccessful, going back to it, trying to say, oh, I'll just drink on the weekends. Oh, I'll just
Mhm.
drink on Thursday through Sunday. And eventually it would always revert back to I'm drinking every day now, buying alcohol literally every day. And I was still working and everything. I wasn't totally non-functional, but it was not a good situation, just health wise, blood pressure, gaining weight, not feeling that great, et cetera, et cetera.
And why was it this moment, the 10 years ago, that you actually quit alcohol? You said that you tried to give it up several times before. What made this time different?
I think it was, I came to a crossroads with my work life being in a difficult position, a lot of stress with that, and being overweight, and coming to a realization like, hey, you've either got to stop what you're doing here or you're really just not going to last that much longer. So it was not only just getting rid of alcohol, but changing my diet, not eating fast food, the whole transformation that to begin with was very difficult. It was not an easy road to not do fast food, start eating much different. So it was a bit of a difficult road at times, but I certainly don't regret it now.
Amazing. And when you stopped drinking, like how long was it until you started to see some benefits? And what were those benefits? A lot of people mention their sleep improves.
I think you feel like your memory is better. Your sleeping
Mm,
habits are better. The sleeping habits for me with alcohol were absolutely terrible. And I would wake up and not feel like I'd slept, and the
yeah.
bloodshot eyes and all those things that come with it. So it was feeling physically better, starting to lose some, and there again, that was gradual. I wound
Mm,
up losing a total of 60 pounds, but that took a while to do. So I think a lot of times people want like an instant gratification. And it really wasn't like that. I would say it probably took about 6 months of saying, I've got to stick with this. And even though it's not that easy, the longer it went on, the easier it became. When I was drinking, there wouldn't be a day where I'd feel like, I don't know if I can even get through this day without drinking. And I don't feel like that at all anymore. Not even
Incredible.
close, not even remotely. And I'm around alcohol. There's wine in my fridge. There's gin in my freezer. There's things that I don't touch that are right there. And that to me is somewhat of a test for me. Listen, if you're going to do this, you have to be able to really do it. You have to be able to stop completely without being like, oh, I'm going to take a little sip. I'm going to cheat. And I don't, even a
Amazing.
little sip of champagne at my son's wedding. I was like, no, I'm not going to do it.
Yeah,
So
it's
I
just not
had like,
necessary. How long did it take you from starting your non-toxic living for it not to be a problem for you any longer? Where you could have alcohol in the house, or even on day one, day two, there was still alcohol in your house and you started in that way?
yeah, there still would be some wine and things like that around. I think I just made a promise to myself that I'm sorry, I get emotional with
No,
some of this, but
of course.
that I was not going to fall back into that lifestyle. So
Amazing. It really is.
as far as how long it took, I would say a month or two where you actually feel like physically you need a drink, that your mind is telling you need that drink to get through the day. So I'd say the first couple of months were very difficult. That's what I tell people. I go on Twitter and social media, and I love encouraging people that'll say, even today, I'm one day sober, and I'll always be like totally encouraging to that person because that little thing can really help,
Completely. That
that they
is
get
from
through that
someone.
day, that
Yeah.
the next day will be easier.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. That's really important for people to realize. Like the next day is always easier than the day you're on, whether you're on day one or day 229, whatever it is, it gets
and I really,
easier.
temptation can always be there. But to me, at this point, it's really not in the forefront of my mind at all. If I have problems or arguments, my first reaction now is not, boy, I need a drink. And a lot of that took a little while to feel like, yeah, you can be fine and not do that, not use that escape route.
Yeah.
So
What do you do now when you have those negative emotions or that uncomfortableness? Instead of having a drink, what do you do?
immediately I'll definitely just try to breathe,
Yeah.
just try to remain calm, be at peace. And frankly, that's become less and less difficult to do because I feel like I'm at a fairly low key position most of the time. Whereas when I was drinking, I was pretty anxious. There was a lot of anxiety and things like that. You think, oh, the drinking will help me get rid of my anxiety. And it's no, it's
Mm,
actually the reverse. Drinking will actually contribute to your anxiety and your depression and all those things. So, you know, it's it's a great feeling to have. And I do a lot of sports. I do 1,000 sit-ups a week now,
wow.
things that I would never have dreamt of 5 years ago, 10 years ago. You
That's what a
know,
lot of people say, that like now they
I
can just
mean,
take on so many different things that they just, it was unbelievable to even think of that. So
yeah,
yeah.
10 years ago, if someone had said in 10 years, you're going to be doing 1,000 sit-ups a week, I would have been like, you're crazy. That,
In what world?
that'll,
This one or
that'll
like
never
the next
happen.
life? Yeah. No, the
And when I
same.
tell people that's what I do now, they look at me like, really? You're
Yeah.
lying? But there are people that see me do it. So,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know,
You
so
become this
anyway,
superman or superwoman to normal people. It's incredible.
and I play
Nice.
tennis and pickleball and things like that. So I use that as my main outlet. And that is very important. Certainly when COVID hit, my gym closed. I had to walk and do walking. And it's like,
Mm.
that's where it's, listen, I'm going to become resourceful and I'm not going to go back to the liquor. I'm not going to use some excuse. Oh, it's COVID. Oh, it's this to drink. Because I think
Amazing.
there's all your mind can always come up with something. Oh, it's a reward. Oh, I'm depressed. Oh, I'm happy. It became, if you use that as your measuring stick, you'll always be drinking. You
There's
know,
always a reason to drink, right? If you want to make a reason
yeah,
to drink, you can do it. Oh, it's
exactly.
Friday. Like here in Colombia, people for Thursday, they're like, it's Little Friday. And it's
Yeah,
but like, really? There's always an excuse to drink if you're looking for one.
exactly.
It's
I mean,
incredible.
recently I went out with a bunch of my tennis players and I was the only one there that didn't drink. Out of a
Uh,
table of probably 15 or 20. Or actually, I take that back. There were two of us who didn't drink out of a table of maybe 15 or 20. But I had a fine time. And it's like I can actually remember what happened. I can drive home without worrying,
uh,
all those things. There's so many things that you're freed from when you're not drinking.
yeah.
I drive my family home after a lot of these dinners where people have been drinking.
Yeah, it's nice to be able to do that. I always find that I enjoy situations a lot more when I'm not drinking. Like I can actually feel the environment. You can actually engage with the people and you can have a great time. Whereas before I was just drinking and like it just numbed the experience. It would be the same if I was drinking in a party or I'm drinking at home watching a movie or I'm drinking whatever. You just have that drunkenness experience. You're not experiencing the actual thing as to where you are and the people you're with.
Exactly. And I don't think you connect with people either. One thing I was going to say
No,
is just socially, the interaction is totally different. And you really feel a connection to people that when you're drinking, it's really just about the drinking. At least at the quantities that I would drink over the evening, I would be lucky if I could remember parts of the evening later on.
yeah,
It just wasn't about being with the other people. And now I can remember stuff from whenever,
yeah. I was
So,
speaking to somebody the other day and he's gone alcohol free since November, I think. And he's a business owner. So he has a lot of meetings with his clients. And since he's gone alcohol free, he says that in those meetings, he actually listens to his clients and now he can change the service that he's providing. And it's improved his business like tenfold because he's actually listening and connecting with the people instead of
right.
having a couple of beers or a couple of whatever it was that he was having that
Yeah.
he like
Yeah.
before it wasn't inappropriate to drink that amount with clients. It was a social thing. We're building relationships where actually he was hindering that relationship. But we
Well,
have
I
that
think that's
social context that we drink to connect with people.
absolutely. I mean, when I was younger, with my wedding, it was an issue with my parents because we wanted to have no alcohol at the wedding. And that became
Interesting.
such a huge issue that we wound up having some beer and wine and champagne there because it was just such an issue. So it was like that was one of my first sort of confrontations. Boy, this is really not an easy way to go. Like
Yeah.
this, it's societally, it's so built in to what we do. You have to break away from that.
Yeah. But now I do feel as if it's changing. Like maybe it wasn't 10 years ago. Like I went 8.5 years ago and it was still like it was a bit of an issue for a lot of people. But now, like I'm seeing alcohol-free drinks popping up all the time. The mocktails that they offer in like restaurants are amazing. And there seems to be
Right.
the alcohol-free communities coming. Like it's still new. In Colombia, it doesn't exist. There's no alcohol-free anything. But I see it in the States and Europe. It's moving. Or that's my impression that I have.
I think that's true. I probably can't speak to it as well as far as being around younger people that much. Certainly, some of the younger adults, from my perspective,
Mm,
in their 30s and 40s, still drink. They don't really talk about wanting to go non toxic. As a matter of fact, I had a colleague that I had spoken to a couple months ago and said, really, a lot of your anxiety, you might want to think about trying to drop the alcohol.
mm,
She just basically listened to me and then that weekend just went out to the bar. So it's like people don't always pick up on it. And that's for them to decide on their own.
Of
I
course,
mean, I
yeah.
think everyone has to come to their own realization, but is it becoming more in vogue to be alcohol free? Yeah, I think so. As a
Yeah.
general rule, when Heineken has a 0% beer,
Yeah, that's a
they've
sign.
got to be thinking about that.
Yeah. I think the under 30s are more alcohol free. The
Right.
millennials, like I'm in the millennial range, and traditionally, historically, we're heavy drinkers still. So it's like the
Hmm.
30-year-olds and under who have that tendency of being alcohol free.
My
Yeah, it's
kids, they're both
interesting.
in their 20s.
Right.
They rarely drink. So I've been very grateful for that. How that
Yeah.
occurred, I really don't know, but they rarely drink. It's not that important to them. Whereas for me, when I was in my 20s, it definitely was a big part of what I would be doing.
Yeah. I think every
I mean,
social
what,
occasion I went to in my 20s, there's alcohol, and I
you
enjoyed
know,
it.
exactly. That's why I had some great times with
Yeah.
alcohol. So I'm not going to be like some prohibitionist. It's like everyone has to come to their own realization of what they want to do with their life. But
Yeah.
for me, it became like too many negatives and not any positives.
Yeah.
The recovery time, the memory loss, all those things. I'm not going to keep doing this.
Yeah.
So,
What was the reaction to from your wife and your children when you started your non-toxic living?
oh, they've been fully backing of it. They've
Yeah.
been fully behind it because
Amazing.
I don't think they really liked the way I was when I was drinking.
Mm,
And it's, yeah, but I had to make the change
yeah. And the
because it had to
decision.
be just like with my colleague that I referred to. She's going to have to make up her own mind if she gets to that point. No one can really force you to do it. And everyone has their methods of how they come to it. But my family was very supportive.
Yeah. Can I also ask what helped you stop drinking?
I think for me, it was just coming to a philosophical point and just using just some mental cues to, okay, I'm just not going to go back to that. And it wasn't anything necessarily in particular. Like I went to a couple AA meetings long ago and I never really enjoyed that. People were smoking
Mm,
cigarettes there. And I'm not going to stop alcohol to start smoking cigarettes. So that thing for me, I like their message, the serenity prayer, all those kinds of things. But to me, it was more like, I'm going to make my life a positive. I'm going to start working out more. I'm going to be active and I'm just not going to drink. I'm going to start reading more. The pile of books I've assembled of how much I read now
mm,
compared to when I was drinking, it's just astronomical.
yeah.
When I was drinking, I would be like, I'm going to read this book, 1 page, 2 page, drink, drink. I never even finished any book,
Yeah. Yeah. It's
you know?
incredible. Like
So
going alcohol free just gives you so much more time to explore your hobbies and different activities that you want to
absolutely.
do.
Absolutely. And people say, how will I fill up my time? Believe me, you will. I'm
Much
very
to do.
busy.
Yeah, me
Yeah.
too.
There's
Like,
plenty of constructive activities in life to do that
yeah.
aren't surrounded by being at a bar or being at home drinking alone in some room.
Yeah. It's sad, right? That people pass their evenings doing that. They just, yeah. Super. Jeffrey, if somebody's listening to this and they're thinking about giving up alcohol, what advice or tips would you give?
I think I would say take a look at your life and what in your life do you feel like you could have done or things that you want to do that you feel like you really can't do. And if you think that's true, that really a lot of it may just be you're hindered by your alcohol or drug use, and really you could do all those things. And to just re examine where you are. The way I ha- ha- process it in my head is you can reinvent yourself. I was in my 50s when I did this. So it's never too late to change.
Mm,
And I was very impressed by the way by your Zach, the I think he was 21. I was very impressed by that because
me too.
to live in this time and to do that at that young an age, I was very impressed. I think he was able at that young of an age to re-examine what he was doing and to say, hey, this just isn't the road I want to be going down. And to
Yeah.
me, it took a much longer time to get to that point. But I think that's the place you have to be. Like, I want my life to be better, and I want to feel better about myself too. What do I have to do? And stopping the drinking and whatever diet you're doing, it's not easy, but I would say, listen, just knuckle down and for the few months and see if you can do it and try to take it from there. And there may be stops and starts. It may not be this straight road.
Yeah.
There may be peaks and valleys to it for you, but I wouldn't give. I certainly had times when I was younger, I actually did stop drinking for periods of time, but it never lasted because I wasn't committed to it.
Me too. Yeah.
So I think it just depends on the individual in many ways. You know,
Completely. Yeah.
or
And
what kind of support system do they have?
yeah, that's always important. And for me, even like a 30-day challenge, that's how I first started. That was enough to feel the benefits that I continued. I did go back to drinking on 2 different occasions, but then I made that commitment and I was just like, no, this is the way forward now. Like, I'm not
Right,
going back. So even if
right.
somebody does those 30 days, they can feel the benefits and then they can make the decision if they want to continue or they go back to consciously drinking. Or maybe it
Right.
is 1 glass a week or whatever it is. I don't think that's sustainable for a lot of people, but it is an option.
Yeah. The whole thing about moderate drinking, I think, is somewhat of a fiction. At least it
Yeah.
always was for me. Yeah, you can say that, but the reality is that you're really drinking to feel that drunkenness, that high or whatever. And the more you drink, the more you need for that to happen.
Yeah.
So, which is what they always say about alcohol being a beguiling chemical and all this. And it is.
It really is. Yeah.
It's a very, very seductive drug.
Yeah. Jeffrey, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been really lovely speaking to you. And thank you for sharing your wisdom.
Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. I hope you enjoyed this conversation as much as I did. Subscribe and stay tuned for the next video. Ciao, ciao.